Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Logan Power Show. It's me, your host, Calvin Logan, nationwide, worldwide. Well, I thank you all for listening to us. This is what's called our in the Logan household filming. We're having some fun here today. I know that you're privileged of what's going on across the globe. I am privileged as well. I got with me a special guest. This man of God is going to definitely bless your life, and he's going to bless us as well. So I definitely want you to tune in what he's about to say. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him here. This is the one, the only Pastor Dexter Peggins. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well, Calvin. Hey, man, you know how to put the pressure on me, man. Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you here. It's good to have you here. We just wanted to bring you here into the room with us here at the Logan Power Show. Just have some fun. We want to get down to some of the things that you're doing just on a global scale. Let's talk about you have an actual juvenile ministry that you help them with the youth getting their lives together, second chances, second opportunities. Let's talk about your ministry, what you got going on for your nonprofit, sir.
Oh, definitely. So I had the privilege of launching an organization back in January called City of Refuge Enterprise. And what we do is we work with at-risk youth and juvenile offenders who are returning to prison. I'll be honest with you, I think the onus of the mission really stems from me remembering who I was as a youth, how I was privileged to have adults and certain people at key junctions in my life speak life to me when I was headed down the wrong path. And I think that in many cases, if we're not careful, we find ourselves discarding our youth. But the danger in that is that the youth, they're our future. And so when we discard them, in essence, what we're doing is we're trashing our own future. And so what keeps us from speaking life to those people who are off track? And so along with a few other business partners, we launched this endeavor. And like I said, our mission is to be just that. We want to provide a safe space for those at-risk youth, those young people returning from prison. We want to serve as a reformation center, essentially, when they are in juvenile court facing the judge. We want the judge to be mindful of the work that we're doing and say, hey, instead of sentence you to prison, this program that you benefit from, and this program is going to help make you a better citizen. And ultimately, that's what we're about. We understand the holistic needs of everybody. And so it's a mind, spirit approach. But also what we're doing is we're encouraging the good that exists in everybody. And so it's our hope that, as we continue to champion this message, that what it'll do is serve as a catalyst for other city of refuges in other cities. It doesn't necessarily have to be our model, but hopefully it'll be something that inspires other mentors, other teachers, other men who have sat back and said, how can I become more active in young people's lives? Hopefully our example will do just that. It will be an example.
Got it. Absolutely. You definitely want to be a model citizen, not just a actions speak louder than words. And a lot of times what we do when people said like, hey, I'm going to reach out to the youth, it's going to require a lot of hard work. It's not easy. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, especially with how things have evolved and changed, like the last 10 years? If you compare the youth that from 10 years ago, from 2010 to 2020, it's like a shift. It's like a phenomenon, or like I would say a paradox of different things that's going on. So how are you able to reach to this youth now than you would have been like 10 years ago?
Great question. First thing first, I think if we're honest, you and I were both young men at some point in time. And our elders will always say, excuse me, I shouldn't have drank that water, it went down the wrong way. But, our elders will always compare us to their generation. And they would say, well, your generation is worse than my generation. They will always kind of identify the flaws that exist in in the generation, we have to get away from doing that. At the end of the day, there's one thing that's true with every generation. People respond consistently. And so while the kids of today may seem to be more aggressive than, say, 10 years ago, the reality is that we have to look at what has been taking place as far as adults from societal changes. If there's not a presence as far as men are concerned in the lives of these young people, we can't speak ill of the young people if the mentors haven't been in place. And so the reality is that the youth of today, they still respond the same way that youth did 10 years ago. It's will you be consistent? And so ultimately, a lot of times what they're doing is they're acting out when they first meet you, because that acting out is actually a defense mechanism. It's because, they've been disappointed before. There's been someone in their life that said, I'm going to be here for you. And then when they flake out, they find themselves disappointed. And so as a means of keeping themselves safe from that disappointment, they'll try to push you away. But if we can learn to read what's really taking place in those moments, and if we can stand our ground and be a consistent presence in their life, what you'll find out is that the young person is open and receptive to your presence and your impact. I think we as adults, we get frustrated because the young person is not receptive to our advice, our criticism, or constructive, feedback from the onset of that introduction. But relationship doesn't work that way. We have to be consistent. We have to be available. And through that consistency, now they become more receptive to that advice that we're trying to administer.
Amen. Amen. Definitely a great answer there. Now, you are a veteran. Your husband, your father, uh, because and you're a pastor. So, what is your like sort of formula, your direction, or how you could approach a child who's, because I hate when they always say the person's at risk. Like, we got an at-risk child. This person's at risk, or this person is uh you know this is the at-risk group. Like, you in this box, like you at risk. Now, a kid can have a problem, just needed a solution. So, what is your approach? Because you have a plethora of knowledge, great education background. Um, you're married. You have two boys. What is your approach when you're trying to approach a young person who's going down a wrong path, and how you're able to guide them into a new direction, for a new equation, for a better solution for their life?
Oh, great question. First thing first, I approach them as how they want to be approached. They want to be understood. At the end of the day, even though some of the actions might not make sense to me, they want to be understood. And so I've adopted the model from the military: call everybody sir, call everybody ma'am, and regardless of your age, and that makes it easy. That I approach the relationship from a position of respect. I'm not trying to come across as a father figure, even though in many cases that ends up being the result. That I take on a fathering persona. That's not the approach. From the onset, I want to come. I want to understand you. I want to understand where you're coming from. And so, from a listening ear, is my approach. Not Dexter with all of the advice and all of the opinions, but I want to understand. I want to understand what makes you think the way that you think, and from there, hopefully, the development of our relationship, we can find some common ground where once again you're receptive, but then you're also helping me to broaden my understanding by seeing things from your viewpoint. But once again, I think the challenge is, and this is what we miss a lot of young people. We minimize their feelings. And so we're processing it through the lens of our own experience, our life, however old we are. I'm 41 years old, so a lot of times I'm processing stuff through the lens of a 41-year-old black man. And so I might be talking talking to a 14-year-old teenage girl or a 14-year-old teenage boy. They don't have the depth of experience, but that's not my time to minimize their experiences. Whatever they're feeling is just as valid to them as whatever I feel is valid to me. And so, from that common understanding, I believe that I've been able to see some success in the ministry that I provide to the young people. And I take that approach, I try to take that approach in pretty much every relationship that I have.
Amen. 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 And that's the approach that we want to take. Um, Now we always got to take the cat out the bag. We got to be honest. As African American males ourselves, um, the common denominator, they say statistically, um, the majority that's been locked up right now is African Americans and Latinos. That's just statistic wise. Now, are some of those numbers construed? I honestly believe so, and that's because we don't talk about PTI, pretrial intervention. We don't talk about the kid got in trouble but gave a way out and got his record expunged. We don't talk about, well, the situation was one person has a better lawyer than the other. Some people got plea deals. We don't talk about those plea deals are not factored into the prison and jail system. You may say, okay, that kid got locked up, but it's not like a record that follows that individual. It's all construed numbers. Just like, people will say, well, this is an at-risk youth. Okay, so what is that determining for an at-risk youth? There's a paperwork trail. Like, did that go to the teacher one, or did that hit to the assistant principal? Did that hit to the principal, hit to the district? How bad is the situation? Was the kid expelled, suspended? All these numbers are coming into play. So how are we able to, because you are an African American male, that's just, let's be honest, the external part is what people see. The spiritual side is something they don't get the chance to see at first. When they hear your heart, there's a different side of it. But how are we able to sort of cut down these numbers so that people like that look like us have a fighting chance? And what I mean by that is we both are veterans. If you do have a certain type of arrest record, you can't get in the military. They won't take you unless you get either an authorization from a senator, a House of Representative, or the President of the United States to get you into the military. Otherwise, it's like, I can't deal with that kid. His record is too long, he or she. Or you get certain jobs. They be like, well, based off the clearance, based off your past history, your mistakes, even if you made the mistake like 30 years ago, when it's times to run for that certain type of clearance, they'll say, well, hey, you can't get that based off of the mistake that you made. So how are you able to say, like, hey, let's change that formula, change that situation? What are some things that in your mind that you would say could help change those statistics around?
Well, definitely. So, first thing first, I'm going to start from the end and work my way back. Uh, my encouragement for every black man, my encouragement for every black female, black woman, we need to find ourselves where we understand the necessity to go after positions of power. All too many times we are dependent upon somebody else to voice our concerns. When if we are in those seats, we can now create policies that address our concerns. And so rather than relinquishing our power and our authority to somebody else, if we're in those seats, now we're aware of certain social economic conditions that are in place that ultimately lead our children onto these paths. Because as it relates to being at risk youth, the identifiers, many of the identifiers are associated with socioeconomic things. So oftentimes it's not even related to their academic standing. It's related to some of the things that are taking place at the home. So we're talking about poverty. We're talking about maybe crime. We're talking about things that in many cases those those young people, they're born into, they grow up in. They don't have an opportunity to create change from the onset. And because they're in those environments, it happens to play out in the school system. And so we, as once again, as adults who are African American, if we are the ones who are influencing policy, we can start to put things in place where we can curb those statistics as it relates to at-risk youth. And so I don't put the onus on the youth. In many cases, when I become familiar with the youth, it's mainly from a preventative standpoint or a rehabilitative standpoint. And so, in order to really enact change, it's the hope that once again we start to change policy. Once again, we can't keep trusting and hoping that somebody will just see our condition, understand our plight. At the end of the day, somebody has to rise up and say, you know what, I'm running for this office to do X, Y, and Z because I understand the condition of my people. It's been going on long enough and there has not been a substantial change. And so I'm going to be the one who will champion change in my community.
Amen. Amen. I told you the man smart. Pastor Peggins is trying to get y'all saved, delivered, and sanctified in here with a lot of information. So tell people how can they get in contact with you?
Definitely. So there's a few ways because once again I do wear a few hats, but I think one of the best ways to reach me is if you go to my website, which is www.dexter Peggins Peggins Jr.com, and then from there you'll see a number of the organizations that I play a part in. And that's the best way to get information concerning me. Also on all social media, Facebook, Dexter Peggins, I'm there. Instagram, Kingdom Solutions Consulting. And so there's a few ways to reach me, but I would definitely welcome the opportunity to connect because at the end of the day, we have a great responsibility ahead of us, and we have to put our hands to the plow and get serious about the work.
Amen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. Pastor Dexter Peggins here live at the Logan Power Show. He has a great program. He's an author. His father. He's a husband. He wants to make an impact in the community. If you are in his local neighborhood, hey, definitely get connected. I believe that our youth of today, if we make a change now, 10 years from now, these statistics will change. The numbers will come down as long as we could. It's going to take a village. Village is key. That's what I say, village. And you say, Cal, we talking about a village. Like this COVID-19, this pandemic is going to really require the village to take over the situation. You can't rely on a teacher no more. It's not a like, hey, I can just rely on the teacher. It's going to rely on like, hey, just talk to my neighbor. Have these conversations that we're having here on Zoom, getting connected with the right people. So I definitely salute you again from top of my head again, Pastor Peggins, for what you're doing. I thank you for coming. Love to have you back so we can talk more about what you're doing. Would you mind coming back again for us at the Logan Power Show?
And as long as you'll have me, I'll be more than welcome to join you. I really appreciate this stuff.
No problem. I appreciate you. Hey, everybody. This is here your host, Calvin of the Logan Power Show, nationwide, worldwide. Hey, we love you, and we will see you soon.